Good afternoon. Our project is on the Iowa Energy Resources, and this project was done by Ellie, Bryce, and Tim. This first slide, we're going to look at what energy resources does Iowa use. So this slide is just an overall view of all the energy resources, kind of broken down by percentile of the resources that Iowa uses, so how much they generate. So Iowa's net generation in 2022 was 71,316 gigawatt hours. So 2023 has not pulled all of its data yet. So again, the closest data we had was from 2022. Iowa is in the top 5 in energy consumption because of the largest industrial sector that we have compared to the small rural communities that we have. So because we have a large industry producing lots of different electrical generation compared to a lot of the rural farming smaller communities that we have, that's why we are in the top 5 for consumption. However, since 2008, we have generated more electricity than we have consumed. So that is great news. We are able to generate more than we're actually consuming per year. So now that we have an overview of kind of what we consume and the resources that we use broken down in that first table, I would like to go into each one individually. So the first one we're going to talk about is coal. Coal production in Iowa is actually responsible for 18,172,126 megawatt hours, which kind of relates to about 25.4% of Iowa's total energy generation. We have 8 coal plants located in Iowa. One of those, however, is no longer working, the one in Lansing, Iowa. They shut that down. The reason they shut that down is because Mid-America and Alliant Energy are going towards looking at their carbon footprint a lot in the state of Iowa, and so they actually shut the one down in Lansing because Alliant is going more to energy efficiency or clean energy, I'm sorry. The biggest producer that we have for coal right now is the Walter Scott Jr. Energy Center, and that's in Council Bluffs, Iowa. That counts for 1,650 megawatts. However, we obviously have not mined coal in Iowa since the early years. And so right now, all of the coal that we have is brought into Iowa by railroad. Mostly that comes from Wyoming. And so kind of with coal too, you have to look at kind of the programs that are kind of trying to go away with that. A lot of environmentalists, a lot of people obviously know the harmful effects of coal and burning those and having those plants. So the Iowa State, they had a coal plant on their campus a while back, and they actually transferred all that over to natural gas now. The University of Iowa is actually looking at biomass fuel energy. So they are looking into how they're going to use different kinds of that to make sure that their plant is not producing or burning any coal. And they're going to have a coal-free campus, or their goal is to have a coal-free campus by next year in 2025. We'll talk more about that when we get into the biomass section. So if we look at the environmental impact that coal has in Iowa, obviously it's high. One of the major things obviously is for climate change. There has been some studies that have showed that the derecho that we had a few years back in Cedar Rapids was actually caused by this climate change, and obviously burning fossil fuels is one of the major damages, I guess, that comes with burning those is climate change. So a lot of people have kind of related the derecho to this kind of burning of fossil fuels and the harm it has in the environment. It also has a negative impact on crop yields. Obviously, as a very crop-heavy state in Iowa, burning coal and having that in the atmosphere can damage the crops that are surrounding those plants. And even from farther out, even having those particles in the air can damage those crops. So again, that's a negative impact that it can have on the community. And then as we go forward, obviously social impacts, you're going to have the political impact of it. So the political talks about climate change, the political year coming up, they're going to talk about those kind of things more seriously. You have activists, community members that come together and don't want coal plants anywhere near their communities for these reasons. So again, that again impact is very high in both those areas. And then the economic impact, again, that negative effect on crop yields. So obviously we get a lot of our money in our state from the crops that we produce and that we sell. If those yields are down because of something like the coal plant, then that is definitely a very negative impact, economic impact due to producing coal. The next energy resource that we are going to talk about is natural gas. So natural gas accounts for about, it accounts for about 10% of generation. This says 9.2. More updated data says 10.06, but it is not confirmed final. So we go with the 9.2% of generation until they update that data more efficiently. We have 14 natural gas burning plants in the state of Iowa. They use a combination of what are called SCCTs, CCCTs, and STs, and all that stands for is the type of turbine they use. So the ST is a steam turbine, the CCT is a combined cycle combustion turbine, and the SCCT is a simple cycle combustion turbine. So just a variety of different turbines that they use for in those plants for natural gases. The biggest plant that we have is in Marshalltown. It is generating system of 820 megawatts. So that's the biggest plant that we have currently in the state. However, Iowa obviously does not produce natural gas. We don't have any natural gas wells. It is actually piped up from surrounding states into these energy plants. So the surrounding states that we use typically are Minnesota, Nebraska, and Missouri. Gets piped in through the pipeline, goes to the energy plant, and that's how we use it. So that's kind of where we get our natural gas from. When it comes to the households in Iowa, 6 out of 10 households use this for their primary heating source. So natural gas comes in and it's used as their primary heating source, and you will see that in 6 out of 10 households in the state of Iowa. Environmentally, the biggest impact it has is the methane emissions that go into the air. Again, that comes into play when you have climate change. That comes into play with all sorts of different things with the environment, but the biggest one is the methane emissions. The social impact, obviously the political debate on global warming and climate change, like I mentioned earlier, is going to be a big one for all of these. Impacts on community and crops. And the economic impact is that it does support thousands of jobs. It does contribute to state and local revenues. So in that aspect, it is very important to keep the jobs that we have currently in this industry. And so they're kind of trying to figure out a way to get this more of a clean energy, a more of a just kind of a different way of doing it. Now, again, with the methane emissions or greenhouse emissions too, that's something they're trying to make sure we can get under control. The next slide we're going to talk about is wind energy. So actually, in the year of 2022, we got 62.4% of Iowa's total energy generation. So well over half of our total energy generation is from wind power, which is amazing. Iowa actually comes in second only to Texas in energy generation, but we rank first as the largest power share in any state for wind production, meaning that's the biggest amount of our energy generation by wind from any state, or any amount of energy for any state in one category. The projected, we have 224 megawatts of wind power that should have been established in 2023. That means they came online, they're in usage, and they're contributing to our energy generation. 2019 was actually the first year that wind surpassed coal in energy production in Iowa, which again, great environmentally friendly thing. Awesome to see if you can look at the chart that I have listed here, you can kind of see how it just kind of skyrocketed from 2020 on, and we really are just getting more and more of our electricity generation by renewable resources. That brown line there is wind. So again, you can see that's the one that has taken off completely in Iowa. You can barely see along the bottom, but there is two along the bottom. One is solar. So that's the greenish line there, and then one is hydroelectric, that's the blue line. So again, we'll go through those here in a little bit, but as you can see, not as big of an impact as wind. Wind has created a huge impact in energy production in Iowa. The environmental impact of wind energy obviously is reduction in fossil fuels being burned. It's environmentally friendly. The economic impact, there's going to be huge amounts of creation of jobs, thousands to man wind farms, develop wind farms, the construction, the maintaining, the climbing of them, and maintenancing. So it's going to definitely produce tons of jobs. The social impact of it, it creates change in climate issues. So again, wind is not going to be something that we're going to have to worry about for climate change or any of those environmental issues that we have to worry about with coal and natural gas. It promotes healthier ways of living, and then it encourages something called sustainability in each community in Iowa. And sustainability is really a big topic right now among the state, among the world, among all the companies that you work for. It's reducing that carbon footprint and having a sustainable Iowa. Just another wind energy slide, and the reason I put this in here is because this is actually out my backyard. This is along right outside of my house. There's a huge wind farm up here in northeast Iowa in Howard County. And so I kind of just threw this in here because it just shows you guys how much this has really been built up. I know there's new ones going in over in New Hampton. It just continuously keeps growing and growing, this wind energy. So I also took a video of them running right outside my house. So I'm going to play that here quickly for you. And again, it's just kind of cool that that kind of energy is something that is definitely right outside of our back door. So the next one we're going to look at is the hydroelectric energy. This isn't one that I was super familiar with or even knew a lot about upon researching this. It looks like we have 4 plants in Iowa. The picture in the background there is actually our Keokuk plant, and it is the largest privately owned and operated hydroelectric plant or dam along the Mississippi River. So that is in Iowa. It operates with 15 different turbines and 146 megawatt capacity, so it's kind of on the larger side. But however, hydroelectric power only accounts for about 1.6% of all of our electrical generation in Iowa. So basically all of our electricity generation in Iowa, this is a very, very small portion of it. Hydroelectric power plants, really their economic impact, we could increase jobs by increasing plants on the Mississippi River. There's not a lot that goes into it economically from that kind of standpoint. It already has these in place. They've been in place for quite a while. However, we do have a lot of Mississippi River that we could use to make more plants if we so decided to do this this way and kind of use this renewable energy. Environmental impact is obviously a renewable resource with the water that we already have. And social impact, again, it just kind of goes with the sustainability. So we look at is solar energy. I'm sure if you guys have been driving around recently, you've seen a lot of the uptick of solar panels, solar panel farms, solar panels on top of houses, just a lot of different people going to the solar energy resource. However, solar energy in Iowa currently only accounts for 1% of our electricity generation in Iowa. 3/5 of that comes from 1 megawatt or larger operations, and 2/5 come from small 1 megawatt or less operations. So a lot of times solar energy is used just for certain households. They buy the solar panels, they get all the energy they can from it, and it's kind of an internal thing. The picture that you're seeing here is from the Wapello solar plant. It's the largest operation in Iowa. It has 128 megawatt capacity. And so again, it's just one of those bigger kind of plants, as you can see. It kind of astonishes me that something that has this many solar panels only produces that 128 megawatt capacity. It just seems like it would produce so much more. However, it does produce a lot in the solar energy world. Total solar installed, though, as of Q3 of 2023 is 705 megawatts. So again, that's been a huge uptick kind of in solar energy. Right now, currently, to kind of put that into a figure, that looks at about 88,848 homes could be powered currently through the solar energy that we have installed in Iowa. There's 12 manufacturers in Iowa and counting. And we are projected to add 1,867 more megawatts over the next 5 years. So again, that's a pretty substantial growth over the next 5 years to be able to add that to the state of Iowa. Obviously, the environmental impact, we're using the sun as a renewable energy, so there's no environmental waste. There's absolutely no waste that comes from that. These get powered into a grid. It comes from the sun. We're not having any hazardous waste from these. So basically, the environmental impact is pretty low. The economic impact of it, you're going to have an increase in job again, production, and revenues. If we're going to ramp up solar panels and solar panel industry, that 1867 megawatts over the next 5 years, you're looking at an increase in revenue, you're looking at an increase in jobs, you're looking at an increase in different kinds of things for the economy in Iowa. The next energy resource we're going to talk about is biomass. So what is biomass? Biomass includes agricultural and forestry resources, solid waste, and algae. So basically anything that you can use from nature or animals that is organically, you can organically reuse. So that's kind of what biomass is. So our biomass currently in the state of Iowa is only 0.3% of all electric generation in Iowa. Basically what happens is in Iowa, we have these things called biodigesters. They turn landfill gases into methane gas for energy production. So it's just taking one kind of gas, changing it to another gas for energy production here in Iowa. The largest biomass plant in Iowa is the Metro Methane Recovery, and that's located in Mitchellville, Iowa. There is 5 plants that are located in Iowa. So biomass resources also go into the only wood pellet plant in Iowa. So basically, the wood pellet plant takes 10,000 tons of wood pellet waste a year and turns it into wood pellets. 10,000 tons of wood pellets that were from wood waste a year. So lots and lots of good recycling kind of in that area. The University of Iowa, like I talked about earlier, is going towards biomass opportunities. So right now they have a research team looking at oak hulls and other biomass resources that they can use to get rid of their coal production in order to make sure that they have a coal-free campus by the year 2025. The environmental impact on this, it obviously uses nature's own resources to produce clean energy. So again, not a lot of environmental impact here with that. The economic impact, obviously, it's going to create more jobs for researchers, for scientists. It can obviously even create a new field of study in science. While biomass is a field of study, making it turn into clean energy, I feel like there would be more opportunities to have different research, have different titles, have different jobs. So again, opening up the economic impact there. And the social impact, it promotes sustainability. It deletes the need for any debate on negative effects on climate change. So real quickly, we can't really talk about biomass without talking about this slide that has to do with biodiesel and ethanol production in Iowa. The reason being is because Iowa is the largest producer of ethanol. So we are head and heels above the competition. We actually hold a fourth of the nation's total ethanol production capacity. Iowa ethanol plants, we produce 4.7 billion gallons per year. And that's actually 30 times greater than the 177 gallons that we consume a year. So we're making 30 times what's needed or what we currently consume. We lead the nation in biodiesel production as well. We have 11 biodiesel plants with a combined production of 470 million gallons. And obviously all of our rich cornfields, they're what provide for these large operations. Now, this isn't something that is predominantly used in Iowa for any means by at this point, but it's just something that we also couldn't let slip by without speaking about it, because it is something that we do produce and we do lead the nation on. So last but not least, we didn't talk about petroleum. Petroleum only accounts for 0.2% of electricity generation in Iowa. So we use what's called liquid petroleum, so LP. That's actually the LP tank in my backyard, and is one that we use for our heating sources. 1 in 8 households in Iowa use propane for a heating source, so I guess you call liquid propane, not liquid petroleum, same thing. That is triple the national rate. So we are a very large farming community. We have a ton of houses that are out in the country that don't have access to a lot of different things. So LP was our only option. So again, I feel like that's the case for a lot of people in Iowa. Our industrial sector consumes the most petroleum out of all of them. 41% of it is consumed for gasoline and motor vehicles, 30% diesel fuels, and 23% propane usage in the state of Iowa. We are also a non-crude oil production state, so we don't produce crude oil, which is great for our environment. And so this is kind of what people lean on as far as petroleum-wise in Iowa. So lastly, just to recap the top environmental concerns with our current productions in Iowa. Coal production still is a massive contribution to energy production in Iowa. It affects our health, our crop yields, our pollution, and has massive effects on climate change. Natural gas pollutes the air with methane emissions, causing changes also to the climate. So those are kind of our two top concerns still. While those have greatly reduced due to renewable energy, and I see it continuing to reduce, they are still a concern. And the third one is that we have pipelines that are a constant concern, especially with the new election year. Will they okay the pipeline through Iowa, contributing to massive environmental concerns as well? All right, I'm going to turn it over to the boys.
Hi, I'm Bryce Adams, and I'm going to be talking about what energy sources are available in Iowa. So to start off, there are many energy sources available in Iowa, and they include coal, wind, nuclear, natural gas, hydro, petroleum, and solar power. This graph in the right-hand corner is basically showing what energy sources were utilized in 2021 and how much of them was utilized. So over the next couple of years after 2021, many of that changed, and the next few slides is going to be talking a lot about that. So wind energy in Iowa. Iowa is a state leader in wind energy. In 2022, over 50% of Iowa's power was made by wind. Iowa is also ranked second nationally in the amount of wind energy installed. Wind energy does not only provide low-cost energy, but it also supports over 3,953 jobs in Iowa. With the large amounts of turbines in Iowa, we are selling wind energy to other states, increasing economic development and job opportunities. The next big and upcoming thing is solar energy in Iowa. Solar energy is becoming more popular as time goes on, and currently Iowa ranks 16th in the states for use of solar power. Studies have shown that 1 acre to solar panels can create as much energy as 100 acres of corn grown for ethanol. Because you can install solar panels on the rooftops and other places out of sight, it is becoming more appealing to homeowners. Solar panels are also becoming more appealing because there are government assistance programs to install them. Although there are many energy sources available in Iowa, there are only a select few that the general population can use. Solar energy is becoming more and more popular in communities in Iowa, and wind energy continues to grow very quickly, producing more jobs for Iowans. Hopefully, all other types of energy will become things of the past very quickly. Thank you.